Welcome to Everlutionary, a podcast about healing and transforming the world. I'm your host, Hawah Kasat, and I am so grateful and overjoyed to have made it to the end of the year. It's the final episode of 2024, my final time here in my little podcast studio. You've perhaps been tuning in, listeners that have been kind of following me on the whole journey. I've moved from different backdrops. I've been trying different microphones. I'm figuring it out, I'm learning. And that's part of the beauty of all the things that have been a part of 2024. So much learning. I had always wanted to start a podcast, and it's been something that's been in like the back pocket and part of a long vision or dream that I had years and years ago. And now here I am, finally out here recording and putting out episodes. I'm trying to be consistent. Some of you that have been tuning in regularly, you know that I put out an episode every 2 weeks. And those episodes have been so much fun for me. And I think part of what I'm really leaning into here as I come into the last few days of 2024 and get ready to launch into 2025, I think about the things that bring me joy and the things that make me feel alive, the things that make me feel really excited about life. And I want to reflect that to you, the listener. And I hope you can take some time here in this window of transition, the kind of reset of what is the new year, and use this time to kind of create some vision, create some reflective opportunity for what it is that really makes you come alive, what makes you feel like you're really living your purpose. I remember at the beginning of this year, I created a vision board, and I'm actually looking at it right now. It's right across from where my camera is, and it's on the wall. And I've got multiple things on the vision board, and one of them is podcast. And the other is my book that I've been working on for the past 2 years. And another one on my vision board is Roots to Sky Sanctuary and the healing arts regenerative farm that I am working on and building with friends out on the East Coast of the United States. I have online courses and creating online courses on my vision board. There are a few other things on my vision board that have not materialized. And it's a humbling moment, right? To think about all the things that I was expecting 2024 to bring forwards, and then all the things that actually really did come forwards, and then how I could keep adapting and not feeling deflated when something that I was hoping to have happen didn't happen. And I think a lot of you can relate to that. And so as you're here in this reflective period, it's the end of the year and you're thinking about, oh, what went right, what went wrong, you're not alone. We're on this journey together. And I'm also kind of momentarily working through, oh, what went right, what went wrong. And I see there's a tendency to want to try to create tangibility of those goals. I want to see the achievement. Want to see the numbers. Oh, how many people really were tuning in to the podcast, and how many people are really listening every month and downloading and subscribing? And there's a tendency to get into the monetization, the numbers, the data. I can see that. I see that as people are posting on Instagram their incredible achievements on Spotify and the number of streams that they've had for their music or the number of countries that their music was played in. I support that. I love that. I'm cheering you on. I'm cheering all of my people on. I like to think that I'm the biggest cheerleader for the world. That's really what I want to be, a cheerleader for the planet and all the people on it to succeed and to live their dreams. And sometimes I could see that as also being a part of the kind of the need for validation. And so I've been sitting with that a lot, whether there's 10 people listening or whether there's 10 million people listening. Am I still the same person? Am I still authentically being me? Am I coming here, pressing record and giving my full heart, my full open vessel and sharing my authenticity? And am I enjoying it? Am I having fun? One thing I've learned about myself as the years have gone on is when I stop having fun and I stop enjoying something, I normally phase it out of my life. And that's just a part of my own process, right? I want to be engaged in activities that are making me feel alive. And so tapping back into my vision board, I did work really hard on some of these projects, and I was hoping a lot that I would have had a book deal by now. I had a book proposal finished all the way back in March. I have a literary agent who is amazing and has been working really hard with me to land this proposal with a publisher. And it just hasn't happened yet. And that's okay. That's okay, because other things have happened. And I try to keep that perspective as I move and move through this. I've learned so much through this process. I've spent, I would say, the past 3 or 4 months just getting all this equipment together, getting the infrastructure together, wanting to produce something and create something with guests that has real value. And I hope the podcast has provided you value. I hope it's created some inspiration for you and a sense of refuge and sanctuary. That's what I want this podcast to do and be. I hope it's an opportunity for us to be in community and to ground in what is possible. And as I keep thinking about the future, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget how the little things are the ones that were the most important things for me this year. There's these big overarching goals. There's these big visions that I have for my work and my life. But then there's just like the everyday little things that were probably some of the most memorable things of 2024. It's really interesting. My sister, she said something to me a long time ago. I was in DC as a nonprofit director and executive director, co-founder, running a really busy schedule. I would say this feels like it was at least 10, maybe even like 12 or 13 years ago. And there was somebody from childhood that was coming to Washington, D.C. They were friends from grade school. I hadn't seen them in probably over like 15 years. And they'd reached out to me and they said, "Hey, Hawah, I'm coming to DC for the week. I'll be there for like these 2 or 3 days. Could you get together? You want to get together for some tea? You want to get together for some lunch?" And I had a crazy schedule. I mean, I remember that week, I was often working 60, 70-hour weeks, and my schedule was just so insane. And I remember I was just on my phone with my sister really for a few moments, and I was just telling her about this and how like I wanted to make time and how I haven't seen this person in so long, but like I just don't see how I can do it. Like I had meeting after meeting after meeting. And then my sister said to me, she said, "Hey, Hawah, 10 years from now, you're not going to remember all those meetings. You're not going to remember what meeting you were in that day and what meeting you were in that day and which grant proposal you put in that other day. You're not going to remember any of that. But what you're going to remember is going to lunch and having tea with your friend. That's what you're going to remember." And it really hit me. Those little things are the ones that I remember from 2024. And hi, and somebody just entered the podcast studio. Come on over. I got my dearest Alicia here. Welcome. You just came home from work.
Yes, I did.
You want to say hi to all the podcast listeners?
Hi, podcast listeners.
This is Alicia.
Hi. Nice to meet you all. I don't need my glasses.
They can't see you. They can only hear you.
Oh, really?
But some people watching on YouTube can see you. But
Hi, everyone.
where are you coming from?
I'm coming from the hospital.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how was that?
It was interesting, as always. The hospital is always interesting around the holidays.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a little kind of final episode of the year for me. I'm saying goodbye for the year and just was reflecting on 2024. Anything special for you this year that happened?
This year was pretty intense. We went through some interesting things this year, just with like moving and settling into California here. Special things. I feel like I got to see some really amazing places here, and I got to hang out with some really amazing people, and I feel very much like this year is one of those years that was like an incline where it just like kept getting better. And I feel like it's still getting better. I feel like it's still just really been really special and like very growth based for me.
Growth-based. For those that don't know, Alicia and I, we live together and she's my partner.
Yes.
And we moved to California back in last year in 2023.
Yeah.
So that was a little while ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it took us a year into it to even like settle into living in California.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an interesting transition. Moving across country always is.
And she's a family medicine doctor who often can be found saving people's lives. If you ever need your life saved, just reach out to Alicia here.
I'm trying to. I'm better at delivering babies.
Yeah, she's delivering a lot of babies. There's a lot of babies in 2024, y'all.
Yeah, lots of babies. People are really bringing the babies through, which makes me like question what's happening in terms of climate change and its relationship to population health. So,
Yeah, all the babies.
All the babies.
She's like the baby catcher. People will like call her from the other side of the hospital because she's so good at catching babies.
Oh, no.
I might be making that up, but I like to think of that as my story.
Yeah. Thank you, babe.
Well, thanks for crashing the podcast room.
Thanks for having
She really rarely ever comes into my podcast room.
Yeah, I don't.
Special.
I don't really.
I don't know why. It smells like sage, and I guess the lights are a little bright.
Yeah, it's a vibe in here. It really is. I feel like it's like your space. So I just like to cultivate that for you.
Yeah. Well, it's not my space. It's just a space. And that's kind of part of what I've been talking about during this little kind of episode, this little goodbye 2024 episode, is just like the little things that I remember and like how sometimes we focus on all the big things, but the big things aren't the things that we end up remembering. Like the meaningful things are sometimes the small things. And I just shared a little story about my sister and how she said that to me once and like made me pause in the middle of like my crazy nonprofit life and end up going to have like tea with a friend who I didn't see in a long time. And I still remember that tea, but honestly, I don't remember what else I did that week. So she was right. She was totally right. Totally right. Gotta have priorities.
Yeah, it's true. The small things are what makes life really special.
So what are your priorities for 2025?
What are my priorities?
Do you have any priorities?
Hawah missed a part where I'm actually in residency. And so my priority is usually to survive. But I feel like lately it's been a little easier to survive. So I feel like I can start bringing in more like inspiration and creativity for this year, more connection. And yeah, I think like maybe bringing in more like adventures and ease to my life, always calling in ease I feel like every doctor is probably always calling in. Maybe everyone in the world is probably always calling.
What does that mean to you, like calling in ease? If you're calling in ease for 2025, what does that mean to you?
I've actually been sitting with this concept of like ease being 50% like your interaction, like in your control, and then 50% like within the circumstances around you. So like out of your control. And so I feel like I'm working with the 50% that I can control, which is like my reaction and like my response, and the way that I like carry myself through the day is actually like how I create my own ease. And then if things are happening around me, like I can respond to that with ease, and like that creates more ease. And like, it's that kind of ripple effect. So I feel that's what I mean by calling in ease. It's more so like calling that into my own awareness so that I can like practice that every day.
I like that. Calling in ease.
Yeah.
So like not trying to force everything. Like, so sometimes if something isn't happening, maybe not trying to make it happen.
Well, yeah, I think that gets into like that conversation about like whether or not we control what's happening or whether or not we don't, like the whole free will thing. So I think it's less that. I think that is a piece of it. I think forcing is not easeful just to begin with. And so I do kind of practice this like awareness of when something just seems really, really hard and difficult in terms of like my actions to make it happen. Like sometimes there's just an easier way and I'm just not seeing it. So like stepping away from it, like maybe it's not meant to be right now, but like it doesn't necessarily mean stop. It just means like this is not the way.
Yeah.
Like it should be a straight line, I feel like. It doesn't need to be like all of this craziness.
all this back and forth.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes our brains are just meant to like think in patterns. So sometimes we get really addicted to the feeling of like trying to figure something out. And I think sometimes that like stops us from seeing like a better way.
Yeah. I like that. Well, we're finding ease because we moved in with each other basically just like 4 or 5 months after we started dating.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like pretty.
It was wild
quick and effortless.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were friends first for a few years.
Yeah. Only advise that if you're friends first, for sure.
Only advise jumping into moving in with somebody across country and picking up all your stuff and moving cross country if you're friends first.
Yes. Yes. Because I think there's a level of like trust in like the foundation that you just kind of have to like move through really hard things, and moving across country and leaving your people and rooting somewhere completely different like requires a lot of trust, not even like just with each other, but also just with like faith in like the world. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely didn't know what we were fully getting into, but it was kind of one of those things where either we were going to try or we weren't. And we were not, neither of us really wanted to do long distance. And so it's crazy because this year, 2024, we've moved 3 times since we got to California.
Which I also don't advise.
No, not like we wanted to, but we were first in like an Airbnb.
Yeah.
For like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, which was a very precious Airbnb.
It was amazing while Alicia was starting her residency.
Yeah, which I also don't advise for people. Like, one big thing is enough for sure. Yeah, don't move across country and start residency.
Well, you don't have much of a choice. I mean, you get
sometimes
a program and now you're starting residency. So I guess the lesson here is that we did jump full on. We just jumped head first into this because we were both like, well, if we don't try, we'll never know. And
we're also head first people, I would say.
Yeah.
Both of us.
Well, we're also heart first people.
We are heart first people, for sure.
We're heart and head first. We're like, we believe in both having importance in decision making.
Yeah, just close your eyes and jump.
Yeah. But here we are. We made it this far to the end of 2024. We're still trying to figure out what it means to live with somebody else in such a profound way. But
Yes.
it's great. And we don't know what 2025 holds, but I think we're here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for crashing my podcast episode here.
Bye, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
I'll just close out with them, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Mwah.
Bye. Yay. We just had a cameo appearance here from Alicia, Dr. Alicia Swint, coming all the way in. Yeah, relationships, y'all. They're some of our greatest teachers. And yeah, it's been a big part of my year. I've had so many changes this year. I mean, the past 3 years, my life and my whole identity has shifted so dramatically. Being in Washington, D.C. for almost 20 years and then having so much of my life and identity wrapped into my nonprofit organization and my work as a community organizer on the streets and in that community, and then leaving after COVID and coming out here to California. I don't have a lot of community where I live in Northern California. I've got some good friends in the Bay Area in like Oakland and San Francisco, but I don't have a ton of people. We're about an hour and 20 minutes north. So Alicia and I, we lean on each other a lot, and it's been a wild ride. So here we are. This is it. I'm committing to one more year here, y'all. I'm not going to promise past 2025 at the moment, but I'm having enough fun and I'm getting comfortable enough that I kind of want to see what keeps happening. I love how I'm becoming less and less attached to the content I create. Like, I always want to create high quality content because that's just who I am as a person. And there's something like also happening in my life right now where I'm just like being okay with not having it perfect. There's a part of me that can be a perfectionist. And I think when you're making a podcast, if I spend too much time thinking about everything I say and how it's going to come off and how it's going to get interpreted, that I'm going to be paralyzing myself from just being able to be free and be alive and be happy. For whatever reason, Spirit has called me out here to be here and do this. And so I'm here doing it. And I couldn't do it without you. I couldn't do it if you didn't tune in. I mean, I guess I could. I'd be just talking to myself. So that's not, it wouldn't be unusual, you know. It wouldn't be the first time I was talking to myself, but my mom would get a kick out of that. Inside joke right there. But yeah, I'm grateful. I'm forever grateful for all the opportunity. If you haven't had a chance yet and you want to help me turn this podcast into something that goes well beyond 2025, I do got to crack some codes and some algorithms. So I am officially launching some kind of Substack page where you can subscribe and you can become someone to support this podcast. And I'm also going to have an opportunity through Spotify for you to join as a subscriber, as a paid subscriber. It is so much work. As much as I love this, it's also like I would be lying if I didn't say each episode takes hours to produce. Not this one, because this is like a fly by the seat kind of episode, but most of the ones with my guests, I've got a whole post-production team and a team that's working with me to like line up guests and to like help me think about strategy. So all of that takes a lot of resources and energy and emails. So I really want to keep this going, but I do really need to figure out in 2025 how to take this podcast and make it at least like sustainable so that I'm not coming out of pocket every month to produce the podcast, which is kind of what's happening right now. So a lot of the greatest things in life start as a passion project, and this is a passion project. And I think a lot of you will have passion projects as you go into 2025. And I hope that wherever you put your energy, it is in a place that brings you joy. I found in my own life that as soon as I start thinking of something like it's my job, that I no longer like doing it. And so I'm trying to create things that don't feel like a job, but that feel like a true expression of my calling, of my reason of being here on Earth. So please stay in touch. If you want to come and study with me, I'm going to be teaching in Northern California at a place called Esalen, Esalen, on the cliffs of the Pacific Ocean in Big Sur, California. It's got redwoods and hot springs. The retreat I'm leading is called Inward Bound. We'll be exploring silence, movement, meditation, pranayama. It's not going to be like a full silent meditation retreat where we're just like living in silence for 4 days or 5 days. It's going to be what I'm calling intermittent silence. So like, it's only going to be like 3 or 4 hours of silence a day. And then there'll be like other activities and conversations. So for those that have been always like afraid to do a silent retreat because you're not sure if you can do it, this is kind of a way to just get your toes wet without having to jump all the way into the ocean. That's April 7th to April the 11th. You can fly into San Francisco. It's about 3 hours from San Francisco. Again, the Esalen Institute. It's called Inward Bound. And that's kind of the big thing I got coming up. I'm also going to be with the Mind and Life Institute and their Summer Research Institute around contemplative education. That's going to be in New York at the Garrison Institute in New York. So look out for that. I'll have a link for that also in the show notes. If you're an educator, if you're a nonprofit leader, if you're a humanities scholar, if you're somebody that really cares about community and healing, you might want to think about coming out to the Mind and Life Institute gathering where I'll be one of the teaching faculty. That's about it for today, and that's about it for the year. That's all, folks, for 2024. And happy 2025. You might be listening to this like right on like the first days of January. I'm wishing you the best. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks for supporting the podcast. Please keep in touch, and please, as always, walk in peace. Everlutionary, restoring balance and healing the natural world, is brought to you by me, Hawah Kasat. If you would like to find out more about me and my story, head to hawah.us. That's HAWAH.US. And then make sure to search for me in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening. Stay in touch. Peace.